his brainwaves immediately changed to that of a deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped.
The only remaining subject that could speak started to scream to be sealed in and have the gas turned on immediately. His brainwaves on the EEG showed the same flat lines as the one who had just died from falling asleep.
However, at this time, there were 3 researchers inside the chamber, making sure that everything was working correctly, so the chamber couldn't be closed. At this time, a military commander who was overseeing the operation gave the order to immediately seal the chamber with both test subjects inside, as well as the 3 researchers. What a dick.
Hey, communism.
Right? One of the 3 researchers heard this command and immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes. Then turned the gun on one of the remaining test subjects, the one who tore his own vocal cords out, and then blew his brains out as well.
The researcher then pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. The researcher screamed to the subject,
I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you. What are you? I must know.
The subject smiled at the researcher and said,
Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to nocturnal haven where we cannot tread.
The researcher paused and stared at the test subject for a few moments. He then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the final test subject muttered his last words of,
so nearly free.
Oh man, what a crappy ending to that.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's the story of the Russian sleep experiment. Now, we know what you're all thinking. Is this all real? What are the origins of the story? Well, that is the first thing we are going to dive into in Strange Facts and Findings.
So, just like Hans said, our first strange fact and finding is the origins of this story. Now, we did some digging and found that there are some interesting variants or modifications to the story. For instance, the stimulant gas is named in some accounts as Nikolaev gas, or sometimes called orange soda. So the earliest mention of this story on the internet was on the website Creepypasta Wiki in December of 2010. A person by the name of Oval H3 submitted the story and also noted that it was a popular story on the paranormal forum in 4chan about the perils of sleep deprivation. So we went through 4chan to try and find some archived stories, but sadly 4chan is regularly wiped and isn't archived. So that is where our trail ran cold.
Yeah, after that, there's nothing. That's the earliest accounts of it on the internets. There's nothing on 4chan. If you can find it, shoot us an email or a message on Discord. We'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
All right, so let's go into our next strange fact and finding, which is about actual sleep studies. So, of course, we started digging in the deep, dark internets, looking for any type of sleep studies throughout the years. And we came across a very interesting government research document that was titled The Pioneering Experimental Studies on Sleep Deprivation. Now, we do have a link to that document, and of course, we will link it in the Patreon notes. But we're going to kind of talk about what was found in the document. So, Hans, you want to hit us with the findings?
I sure will. So this research document discussed various findings in sleep deprivation studies. It stated that a Russian physicist and scientist, Marie Demeshiny, in 1894 conducted sleep experiments on puppies. This study was meant to determine whether or not sleep was more important than food. So her experiment consisted of her forcing 4 puppies to stay awake by constantly walking and handling them. The first puppy died after 96 hours, while the rest perished shortly after. She repeated this experiment on 6 more puppies, which they all met the same fate. Marie concluded that the complete absence of sleep was fatal in a few days for the puppies, pointing out that severe lesions occurred in the brain. This kind of solidified her theory that sleep is more important to survival than food.
Messed up, lady. Messed up.
Yeah, super messed up lady. But it just keeps going.
Now, the document also talks about another sleep study that was conducted only 4 years later in 1898 by Italian physiologist Lamberto.
What's his name? Say it. You got to say it.
Lamberto Daddy.
That's his name, Daddy. Yeah. Oh, Father.
I don't know, Dad.
Giulio Tarazzi. Yeah, these names are probably wrong, but I'm not Italian. Okay, sorry. Both Lamberto and Giulio did almost the same exact thing as Marie. They got dogs, made them sleep deprived by walking them, and kept track of how long they survived without any sleep. The dogs died after 9 to 17 days of no sleep.
You know, you figured that would be enough tests for them to figure out, hey, can dogs survive without sleep? But apparently it wasn't. So that same year, in 1898, psychiatrist Cesare Agostini wanted to see how sleep deprivation affects animals. So he sleep deprived multiple dogs by keeping them in a metallic cage and constantly awake. The dogs survived about 2 weeks and then died. During autopsies, it was noted that there was severe degenerative changes observed in the dogs' brains. So that's just some examples of some experiments that were done on animals, which now we're going to try to change course and talk about some sleep experiments done on humans. Who wants to start us off with that?
Oh, I've got you. I got you, fam. Sheesh.
All right.
Now our next strange fact and finding is about sleep experiments on humans. When looking into this, we did find a very interesting one. So back in 1896, doctors J. Allen Gilbert and George Patrick kept an assistant professor and 2 instructors awake in their lab at the University of Iowa for 90 hours. It was reported that on the second night of being awake, the assistant professor hallucinated that the floor was covered with greasy molecular layer of rapidly moving or oscillating particles, but no long-term side effects were observed.
Oh, okay.
Bro, that's trippy.
Yeah, I know. And I've got a similar personal story, but I'll save till the end of me staying awake. So, Dan, do you want to tell us about Randy?
So this strange fact and finding is about a 17-year-old who decided to stay awake for 11 days. So on December 28th, 1963, a high school student by the name of Randy Gardner decided to start a mission. He wanted to see how his body would respond if he stayed awake till January 8th, 1964, which was a total of 264 hours, or like I said, 11 days. With the help of 2 friends, they decided to start at 6 a.m. and began the journey of staying awake. Now, he was closely watched by a Stanford researcher by the name of William Dement, who pretty much got interested in what he was doing and flew down from San Diego to get involved. He started off all energized and alert, but by the second day of staying awake, he had trouble focusing on his surroundings and recognizing objects given to him. By the 3rd day, Gardner was extremely grouchy and his speech began to slur. Now, the 5th day is where it got interesting. He was starting to imagine himself being Paul Lowe, a 200-pound football player, while he was only 17 and maybe 120 pounds.
Yeah, brother.
So, big dreams, buddy, big dreams. The 10th day, Dr. Dement reported serious cognitive and behavioral changes. These included moodiness, problems with concentration, and short-term memory, also including paranoia and hallucinations. The 11th day came around, and they tried to test him by subtracting 7 over and over multiple times from 100. By the time he hit 65, he just stopped. They asked him why had he stopped, and he just replied that he'd forgotten what he was doing. As the experiment continued on, Randy found it difficult to stay awake, especially at nighttime. So Dr. Dement and Randy's friends stayed nearby and made sure to keep him occupied with various activities to keep him awake. He wasn't allowed any caffeine or any type of drug to keep him awake. They made sure that he had regular hospital checkups, which he was perfectly fine other than the fact that he became confused and forgetful, not getting any sleep. He happened to have hallucinations regularly, where he imagined different sceneries in front of him. But by January 8th, 1964, at 2 a.m., he had broken the previous record of 260 hours of staying awake. So, after he finished this challenge, he of course got checked out again and was fine. As soon as he got the chance, though, he went to sleep. Randy slept for 14 hours and 40 minutes. And it seemed he stayed awake for a while, but he ended up going back to sleep for an additional 10 hours and 30 minutes. He had to do a follow-up sleep recordings to make sure that he was okay, though. 1 week, then another at 6 weeks, and a final one at 10 weeks, which showed no significant differences, so Gardner seemed to be doing fine, but it did say that he seemed to experience serious insomnia at times because of it. And other than that, the report by Dr. Dement stated that only thing that really changed was the mood swings Randy had due to his tiredness.
I would be interested to see what changed in his brain, like what was going on in his brain during this time.
Dude, to imagine that you are big as football player, well, 200 pounds, now it's not really big, but
yeah,
you got those really big boys now, but
it's crazy.
If Aaron did it, he'd imagine himself as Macho Man Randy Savage. He'd start pulling out the sunglasses, like, Aaron, what the fuck did you get those from? Don't worry about it, brother. What the fuck, Aaron? Quit.
It's exactly